Hey, students of American literature, we're going to talk some Willa Cather here with The Sculptor's Funeral. Terrific story. I've missed it. This was in the Norton Anthology of Literature that I taught out of for a few years, actually, not too many. And then the Norton people switched it out. And so it's just like, all right, it's not the book. But since we're doing PDFs this semester, at least for the first half, I'm like, hey, I'm putting Cather back in. So we achieve a couple things by including Willa Cather. Number one, we get a woman in a little earlier than I had in more recent previous semesters. And we get some really good Midwestern representation in prose here. Willa Cather is sort of the poet laureate of the Midwest, and the Midwest, Nebraska, which is about as Midwest as it gets, really peaked in the time period that she lived there and the time that she writes about. And then with the Great Depression and tractors replacing people, it kind of emptied out of population. So very interesting place to visit. In 2005, I visited authors' homes all over the country, historic homes in Red Cloud. I did visit Red Cloud, spent 2 days there. I stayed in a bed and breakfast. It was a house owned by her parents. I actually stayed in the room that Willa slept in when she visited her parents, so that was kind of neat. But it's very different in the Midwest. Here we are in upstate New York, and we have people from this city who spend a lot of time up here and spend a lot of money up here. And sometimes we go to the city, and there's a big difference between country and city. Let me tell you, go to Nebraska and you will realize Columbia and Greene County and New York City are like this far apart culturally, the people, compared to way over here, Nebraska and other places in the Midwest. So it was very interesting for me, who's a country boy who knows people from the city and occasionally visits the city, to go to Nebraska and be like, whoa. And I'm talking like everyday stuff, like waiting in line, and the two people in front of me are talking really slowly about the new skid steer loader that Hank got. And I'm like, come on, people. And it was like, I felt like a New Yorker out there. It was kind of cool in a way. And none of that's good or bad. None of those people, good, bad, whatever. I'm just saying, when you go to the Midwest, you realize how Eastern we are, how New York we are, even though we are essentially country people up here in the Columbia and Greene counties. Very interesting. Get out there, people. Get out there. Visit America. Go to small local restaurants and talk to the local people and experience your country. I highly recommend it. Okay, so Willa Cather, Sculptor's Funeral, terrific story. God, I missed this story. One of the cool things when you visit Red Cloud, Nebraska, where many of her stories are set, at the train station, they do have a coffin laid out, just like the sculptor's coffin is described in this story. So that's kind of neat. So let me start with women. We've talked about in my literature classes how women are presented in literature. Men don't look super in this story either, but the mother in this story is a monster, right? The daughter is sort of in the shadow of the mom, but supportive of the mom, and you have a feeling she's sort of a mom in training. But the mother is just a monster. And her husband is sort of the sweet, subservient man who wanted to see his son do well, and he spent a lot of money getting his son Harvey through art school. And the people in town, of course, didn't think much of that. But the mom. So if this story was written by a man, I would be reading the mom character. I would be offended, and I'm a man, by the way. I would be offended for women. But somehow, since a woman wrote the story, is it less offensive? I don't know. You decide. You're smart people. You decide. Okay, so The Sculptor's Funeral. So we see the story pretty much through the eyes of an outsider. What's his name? Stevens, who's from Boston. You have a feeling he was the apprentice, the student of Harvey Merrick, the sculptor. And you have a little sense there are moments that are sort of implied that may have been a romantic relationship. It's sort of hinted at that the sculptor may be gay. You know, one of the townspeople talk about his ladylike voice. Not that gay men are ladylike, but that is something that kind of a small town backwards person, at least in 1905, would say about a gay person. It's also a bit of a stereotype that strong mothers make gay sons. Of course, that is offensive to gay men, and it also should be offensive to women. Don't be a strong mom because you'll make your son gay, right? Dad's got to be strong and the dominant one, so the boy's dominant as well. So that's a stereotype that Cather almost sort of works in here in a way that we really shouldn't buy into, because it's dangerous and it's hurtful to both gay men and strong moms, right? Strong moms everywhere. So the sculptor's body is coming back from the east. So the sculptor Harvey Merrick, this is a great story that a corpse is kind of the center of things. He was, and you have to read a little bit between the lines, extremely successful as a sculptor, right? It hints near the end that he did well financially. Stevens, his friend, student, talks about how he put that map on the town, put that town on the map. It's the only reason anybody would know about Sand Creek. Is that the name of it? Sand Field, something like that. I'll find it as we move through the story here. And that palm on the coffin. I don't know exactly what that symbolizes. I tried to look that up. Maybe you guys found something out there. But it's some sort of great symbol of recognition for a great artist. So how come these people in the town are so down on them? Because they are Philistines. Do you know that word? It's a biblical reference. The people in this town, except for the lawyer, Jim Laird, he's an interesting guy. The people in this town are small-minded. They can't really conceive of certainly art. They have poor aesthetic taste. Like the way the house is decorated is not attractive, right? It's kind of gaudy, late Victorian, but out of date, gaudy. So the people, the men in the town, except for the lawyer, and seemingly Mr. Merrick, the sculptor's dad, are so small-minded and money-grubbing, self-interested. They can't conceive of anything outside of this almost animal-like condition that they live in, of just kind of being, scratching out their own little scoundrel life in this town. And I love, I feel awful for him. The sculptor I feel great for. The sculptor got out. The sculptor had a good life, maybe always a little reserved, but you have a feeling he had a good, successful life, particularly the way Stevens thinks of him. Oh, I just found it. Sand City. All right. So at the end, I'm actually going to start at the end when Jim Laird, he's the red-bearded lawyer in town. Jim Laird went to college with Harvey Merrick, and Jim Laird, very bright, instead of getting out of this small-minded small town, he came back, and he was very skilled lawyer, and all of these semi-scoundrels in town. They're not terrible people, but they're just kind of unethical, amoral. They're not murdering anybody. They're just cheating people out of stuff, which is not good. But they're not horrible people. They're actually not that interesting. There'd be more to them if they were actually doing like really bad things. But instead they're just kind of small town, small-minded crooks, right? And they use Jim Laird, and he hates it, and he about drinks himself to death. He gets killed. He dies going out to defend one of these guys' sons who is cutting wood illegally on federal land in Colorado. But Laird, instead of getting out, instead of doing something with his gifts, he comes home and he serves these people, knowing that they're a bit unethical. So I love it here at the end when he really lets into them. Yeah, this is really good stuff. The lawyer paused a moment, and these guys know this is coming. They don't care, because this guy, he serves their purposes, so they'll take his abuse. The lawyer paused a moment, squared his heavy shoulders, and went on. Harvey Merrick and I went to school together back east. We were dead in earnest, and we wanted you all to be proud of us someday. We meant to be great men. Even I, and I haven't lost my sense of humor, gentlemen, I meant to be a great man. I came back here to practice, and I found you didn't in the least want me to be a great man. You wanted me to be a shrewd lawyer. Oh yes, our veteran here wanted me to get him an increase of pension because he had dyspepsia. That's like an upset stomach. He wanted to get a bigger pension, cheat the government. Phelps wanted a new county survey that would put the widow Wilson's little bottom farm inside his south line, basically steal the woman's property. Elder wanted to lend money at 5% a month and get it collected. Pretty high rate, 5% a month. Old Stark here wanted to wheedle old women up in Vermont into investing their annuities in real estate mortgages that are not worth the paper they're written on, so cheating old ladies on the other side of the country out of their money. You needed me hard enough, and you'll go on needing me, and that's why I'm not afraid to plug the truth home to you this once. Jim Laird is really, to me, the most tragic figure in this story, because he sort of has this awareness that he's serving these small-minded, small-town scoundrels. Of course, yeah, if you're an unsympathetic person, well, dude, get out, man. Why do this? I don't know. It's complex. People are complex. Okay, that's good for part one. We'll move on to part two in our conversations about the sculptor's funeral.